Hi, this is Mike Seifert again, coming at you with another video. Today's video is about 5 or 10 business books that I read in my past and that I think are pretty important to read to get a good foundation for business. So let's start. So the first book that I've decided to pick out is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now this book has been out since like 1996, 1998. I actually read it, I think, right around 2003, 2004, in that time frame. And Rich Dad Poor Dad is basically a foundation to describe the difference between liability and assets, income and expenses. And pretty much Robert Kiyosaki does a good job explaining what all that means. For example, an asset puts money into your pocket, a liability takes money out of your pocket. There's even, let's see if I can find a diagram. There's diagrams in here about how the flow of money works, if you can see that. So it shows you that if you have an asset, well, this example is a liability, there's an arrow going to the expense column, which is opposite of what you're trying to do. You're trying to accumulate capital. So Rich Dad Poor Dad's great for the foundation of business. It talks about assets versus liabilities. Now, the thing is about this book, people, is that it's great foundation information, but it's not always going to work in real life exactly how this book talks about. You just can't go out and buy a rental property and rent it and think that you're going to make a ton of money and you're done. It's a lot more work than that. But at least this gives you the foundation on how you should accumulate assets and not liabilities. For example, if you buy a bunch of motorcycles and cars, those will be considered a liability because those take money out of your pocket. Even your own house, if you buy a house, that's considered a liability because it's there's expenses that come out and you're paying. Now, if you rented your house out that you personally own, now it becomes an asset because it's putting money into your pocket, which is going into the income column. So that's a good book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Here's the back of it. I would highly suggest, if you're starting out in business, if you're new, if you're young, if you're old, and you're just getting into business, read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's going to help give you a basic foundation of what you should be doing in business. The next book I want to talk about is The Cash Flow Quadrant. Another Rich Dad Poor Dad book, came out around the late 1990s, early 2000s. Now, on the left side of the book is employee, self-employed, and then the right side is business and investor. That's what this means, the cash flow quadrant. And basically, what they're trying to do in this book is tell you how to get from the E quadrant and circle around to the I quadrant. So E stands for employee, S is for self-employed, B is for business owner, and I is for investor. So what they're going to talk about in this book is if you're an employee, you pay your taxes up front. As soon as you get your paycheck, they already subtract those paychecks. You got to pay Uncle Sam. And then you work for somebody on a W-2. And a lot of times you don't get ahead as an employee. It's hard to make lateral moves in a company. Whereas self-employed is a step up from being employed, where self-employed is like a dentist or doctor. They have their own practice. But if they get sick or something happens, there's no system in place. They might go out of business because they're self-employed. They basically have created a job for themselves. The next quadrant is B for business quadrant, which is basically where I'm at right now. I'm trying to develop things like systems in a business where if you're sick or you go off out of town for 3 weeks, the business is still running and growing, and it's not dying. That's basically what you're trying to strive for here. Trying to get a business, even like a franchise, like a Little Caesars, Jets Pizza franchise, or if you're on the West Coast, whatever franchises they have out there in California or wherever. So then ultimately, in the end of the book, you're trying to get to the I quadrant, which is an investor. You eventually want to become an investor, where you have a capital of millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe you loan money out to somebody that's doing real estate flips. Instead of you actually being self-employed and doing the flip job yourself, you lend the money out at an interest rate, and you get a return on investment, and you can go sail around the world in your yacht. So that's the ultimate goal in business, is to become an investor. You could be an active investor, you can be a passive investor. This is what it talks about. So Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's a pretty good book for just understanding the types of positions in life and in business. The next book I want to talk about they're both from Dr. Thomas Stanley. Excellent books. Dr. Thomas Stanley unfortunately passed away, I think, a few years ago. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. And his other book, also called The Millionaire Mindset. And basically what these two books talk about are real millionaires, not what the mainstream media shows you. How do real millionaires live in real life? He also has another book called Stop Acting Rich. All three of these books I'm talking about correlate with Dr. Thomas Stanley's ideas of, you'll be surprised that most millionaires aren't in $5 million homes. A lot of them live in modest homes, in normal neighborhoods. A lot of them haven't paid over $40,000 for a luxury automobile, he says. The difference between badges, you're going to go, badges meaning I'm going to go buy a Gucci purse or something, or a Prada, and you want to have that badge that you're carrying around with you to show that you're rich when you're really not. So he talks about the decamillionaires compared to people that are trying to act rich. And he's saying stop acting rich if you're not rich to get to the point where you will be rich. And then when you're truly a multimillionaire, go buy your 5 or 10 Ferraris. It talks about a guy that has like 20 Ferraris, 10, 20 Ferraris, and he's a glittering millionaire and can really afford it. Then it talks about, that's the book called Stop Acting Rich. This book talks about the millionaire next door. Could be your neighbor that's a multimillionaire and you never know it, because they're not spending all their money on Cadillacs and Ferraris and Mercedes. So these books by Dr. Thomas Stanley, I would highly recommend reading. It's going to give you a foundation for a mindset on how a millionaire would think, and it kind of puts things in check when you want to go finance, $1,000 a month car payment. And believe it or not, I used to do that. I used to have all these cars and all these car payments, and it was draining me. I was trying to look like a big shot, and really it was hurting me. So this day and age, I drive a modest car. I don't have any payments, and I'm building my company, which is New Michigan Realty, by the way. So now that, plus the people I work with, they see that I'm not a spendthrift. I don't go out and just go buy Mercedes, Cadillacs, big houses. I'm very conservative with our company funds, which in the end shows a stability to people. So people know that, oh, Mike's not out there, I need to go, take more from you to pay my $800 car payment for my Range Rover. That doesn't happen at this company. So that's what I learned from these books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Millionaire Mindset, for example. Just to live not below your means necessarily. Nobody wants to live below their means, but in the beginning of business, you basically have to do that to accumulate capital. You can't fake it till you make it, as they say. That's not a good philosophy, in my opinion. Some people do it, though. Another book I want to add is called The 100 Absolutely Unbreakable Laws of Business Success. And this is a book by Brian Tracy. Picture's like probably 25 years old of him. He's a lot older now. This is probably the early 2000s this book came out, I think. Not sure. Basically, it's about 100 different laws in here. Just it talks about, for example, the laws of business, and it'll go through a couple laws, and then let's see here if we can get a quick example. The law of determination, law number 60 there. It talks about what that law means to Brian Tracy, and then basically applying those laws. He talks about a story of applying those laws, and so it's a really good book just to give you some basic business a foundation for basic business. Brian Tracy is a great author. He has a lot of other books and videos that are out there. I highly recommend checking out some of Brian Tracy's material. It's pretty good. Now on to one of the most controversial books that I've read, and a lot of people, they may agree or disagree that it's controversial, but it's a book called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now this book talks about how to gain power, whether it's through like a king and queen back in the day, 18th, 17th, 16th centuries when King Louis was around, like the law of silence to intimidate people and get them thinking, what is he thinking? There's several laws in here that could be Could be dangerous. I would read this book with caution. Some of the laws are really good, but some of the laws are a little bit shady. But it tells you how to maneuver in corporate America. You can apply these laws to today's modern reality. Some people think it's a little bit of a darker book. I tend to agree with that, but at the same time, there's some really good, valid information in here on how to outmaneuver your competition. Unfortunately, it's just, you know, it's a little shady, but it's true. A lot of these laws. So I would recommend Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. It's gonna talk about a lot of stuff in here. So last couple books, a little favorite of mine back in the day. It's called Why Climb the Corporate Ladder When You Can Take the Elevator, and it's by John Capozzi, I believe, Capozzi. And so this book is basically a bunch of quotes from CEOs and executives from major corporations, and it just gives you little quotes to remember. You know, for example, you know, let's see here, nothing. You know, like number 239, nothing happens until someone sells something. So it's a book like this. It looks like this, and it has a bunch of quotes in it. It's just little sayings to remember that are kind of cool. The wise CEO knows that every great chairman was once a junior executive. Just because you're often right doesn't mean you're always right. Just little sayings to remember during your workday. So if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, first, that's not good. You don't want to be the smartest guy in the organization or the room. You always want to get ideas from everybody. But this just 500 secrets for business and success in business, basically, is what it is. So keep that in mind. It helps you, you know, think of little quotes during the day when situations arise. Last but not least, another book called The 1 Minute Millionaire by Robert Allen. Now, Robert Allen hasn't been around for a while, but back in the early 2000s, late 90s, mid 2000s, he was a great author. I think he was the king of drop me in any city and I can sell any house, or I can buy any type of investment property or something. Give me 90 days or something. 90 hours and I can have a house bought and sold or something. But this book's pretty good because it tells you about lessons, and then it gives you, like, there's like a story about how that lesson was applied in here. So The 1 Minute Millionaire, again by Robert G. Allen. And again, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other books out there. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Who Stole My Cheese, The 1 Minute Manager, I think the 6 hour work week or something. These are all great books. I'm going to probably make another video with the top 25 books. There's a lot more than what I'm showing you that I've personally read. But I think some of these books are good foundational books for you to gain some business knowledge on. So I hope this video has helped. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them at the bottom. But again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you watching my video. And again, let me know if there's any suggestions out there. I'd love to do a video that can help somebody. So thank you and have a great day.